Underwater, underwater. I wanted to make a little bit of an introduction, but nah, it sounds silly. So you can see, I just came back from underwater, and since the movie has a stuffed rabbit that is kind of is shown a lot of times during the movie, this is why I brought this little fella that I brought from Japan when I was in Rabbit Island. So, here you go, little fella. I might not be TJ Miller, but here you go. Well, we're still on January. The dumpster fire of bad movies or sometimes good movies, because at the same time this week, mainstream cinemas now they have their chance to watch 1917, which I highly recommend you if you haven't watched it. So since I already watched 1917, I had the luxury to watch Underwater, this January horror movie that, truth to be told, it looked interesting and interesting enough for me to be anticipating it. So I went to the movie theater expecting to see another one of those January films. Funny enough, because I saw the trailer a few months ago, and I do remember that, this looks interesting. It may be kind of like a nice popcorn flick, and then boom, January, and I was like, oh. So that's basically my my first impressions of the trailer. So you might be wondering also, what makes you anticipate this movie as a horror? Well, I have a confession, guys. I am very, very afraid of underwater. It's funny how I get marveled sometimes and I get questioned about space, but for me, there is something much more creepier when you think about, going underwater where there's a lot of pressure and the animals that there is, and boy, that something terrifies me about this. I think in one of my videos I did mention why I have kind of like a fear of going on boats sometimes. And one of these is that my imagination, when I think about under the sea, is something that makes me feel. So this is why usually movies that have to do with underwater creatures or going very, very deep puts a chill out of me. At least it's good enough to have a little bit of a good, legit scare out of me with this movie. More than anything than the last movie The Grudge gave me. So there, I went to see Underwater, and here's the best way I can describe my total thoughts about this movie. This movie is kind of like a solid film, but unfortunately is this one that goes by the rules. It has some cliches that you find in most 90s action films, that it has a little bit that they're being focused to create kind of like a video gamey journey from one point to another, and the character development is really, really minimal, to the point that people might not care sometimes. They're just kind of people going into the meat grinder, and it's kind of like a dumb 90s thriller film. That's the best way I can describe it. And it's none of the good ones, but I'll probably say that is one of them goes in the middle of the road. But I do guarantee you that that if you kind of forgive these kind of movies like I did, you're gonna come out saying that, you know what, that was a nice couple of minutes that I went through. And this one, it does. I I just came out fairly entertained. It has some dumb moments, it has some bad moments, but there's some. But I'll say that it has some good and bad that you will say, no, but yeah. Alright, so right now let me tell you the little piece about this movie. First of all, the movie doesn't waste any time on jumping into the action, because once the movie starts, shit goes down, and then you're gonna see all the remaining characters gathering up and finding out with their own mission. In this case, it is about a group of people in an underwater facility in which something goes wrong. The structures begin to fall down, and a lot of people die except for survivors. So the survivors find each other, they meet each other, and they have to go from let's say they have to travel from one segment of the facility to another one that is far away in order to either get help. Not get help. In this case, they have to go there because it's the only place where they have functioning escape pods. That's the short summary of what they're gonna have to do. But unfortunately, something else is dwelling underwater, and let's say that is something monstrous that is trying to get them. Yep, it is one of those dwelling underwater creatures that roams under the sea, and they're gonna get you. And by the way, they're not sharks. Considering that I know the creature that dwells underwater and all these pictures, no wonder I kind of have a fear out of them. First of all, no, you know what? Now let me talk to you about the actors, because the actors in a way is pretty solid. It has a solid cast. Our main character is a mechanic named Nora. She's played by Kristen Stewart. And for my surprise, this is probably one of the best roles she has ever been, because she is trying to get out of the shadows of the Twilight movies, in which I never saw them. I know what it is, and I can agree that her acting is very bland. But this one finally shows that she can do a little bit better if you have kind of like the right direction and the right characters. And she does. She's very, she's likable. She is kind of like the glue of the movie. You care about her. And she does a good job. Other characters, of course, include, John Gallagher Jr. playing as the captain. There is I only have to do Mamadou Atfi. I don't remember the names of the character, who is kind of like the, with lack of better words, the black guy. There's Gunnar Wright, Jessica Henwick, and Vincent Cassell. Oh, I apologize, just in case. The captain wasn't John Gallagher Jr. John Gallagher Jr. plays another character. The captain is Vincent Cassell. Sorry. And by the way, yes, T.J. Miller is there too, as the quote-unquote comic relief. You don't get too much about these characters. The character development that they have are pretty, stock. And the little backstory that they claim, it feels too rushed and on the go that sometimes you don't understand what they are. And some of them, doesn't stand out, except for example, again, Kristen Stewart, the captain, also the other girl, Jessica Henwick, because she kind of becomes like the paranoid woman that she doesn't want to die and all that stuff. But let it be known that the one that stands out the most, for better, for the worse, is T.J. Miller. T.J. Miller when he does some acting, he is pretty good in some whatever how you use it. But in this case, he's the '90s comic relief that whenever he appears on screen, you're gonna he's gonna spout out some comic bullshit that is gonna either lift your spirit or get him a slap in your face. Oh, and by the way, yes, there is one shot that you're gonna see his underpants in his ass, just to make a joke out of it. And some people kind of laugh. I just kind of snicker by saying, "Oh, is that really?" Oh yeah, and one of the things that T.J. Miller has in his character is that he's always carrying around stuffed rabbit. Not like this one, but he's always like, here, this is kind of like my precious. It's kind of cute on having this bunny rabbit, you know, that he gets passed into one character to another. And by the way, I'm not gonna ruin you everything, but pay attention to that rabbit. That's the only thing I'll tell you about this. Pay attention to this rabbit. Now for the technical levels. I better talk to you also about the elephant in the room, which is none other than the monsters, or the monster, which is basically kind of like an aquatic creature. And it's all CGI. It's CGI. You can barely see the designs in one way or another, but in a way, for me, it kind of resembles kind of like a mixture between a leech and Orga from Godzilla 2000. And a little bit, of course, of the Cloverfield monster, for lack of better word. Apparently, people in America are obsessed with making creatures that looks like the Cloverfield monster. Although I don't blame them. The Cloverfield monster is a terrifying design. But still, the CGI basically it looks a little bit cheap. Not very bad, but sometimes it's cheap, which gives out the impression that this movie doesn't have a giant budget like other monster movies. But at least this movie is clever enough to in some ways or another hide this low budget, because one of the things I will praise about this movie is that a lot of the times that they go underwater or there are underwater scenes, it's really dark. The surroundings are really dark. There's a lot of shadows. The light is very minimum, and it makes you feel, you know, that claustrophobic. At least in my case, that being underwater and you know, with your suits and the oxygen and all this stuff. I'm not the kind of guy who will tell you, oh, that's kind of fictitious because you can't, because I'm not an expert of underwater exploring and all this stuff. So I can't. I'm sorry if I'm not an expert on you know, on the facts, scientific facts of going underwater. So yeah, it has that. Although it does place out, you know, with the problems of pressures. I'm not gonna say exactly what it is, but there is one death that involves, you know, pressure. This is probably, I will say that it's one of my biggest fears of how I don't want to die. Man, that's all I have to say. Let it be said also that while I praise the darkness and the claustrophobic you know, ambience of the whole movie, I will say also that this is also a double-edged sword, because sometimes when there's a big action scene, the camera and the space feels too tight, too close up, so much that there are times that I get confused on what the hell is going on. Sometimes the movie also blacks out something from one scene to another in order to give itself shortcuts from how a character reaches from one place to another. It's not 100% bad, but it kind of leaves out a little bit confused in some ways or another when things happen like that. There is also a specific death that things happen too tight that you don't know what the hell is going on, and then later the character will say, okay, that happened. Well, it's pretty much lazy writing and lazy editing. I think that after having my thing with the Grudge, I was kind of saying, okay, I forgive it because at least I kind of understand it. Well, the pacing is well enough, I'll say. Just character, going from one place to another, sometimes encountering a danger from one place to another. Again, the character holds up. Again, I will say that Kristen Stewart and the captain were probably the best characters in this movie. Again, I'll say T.J. Miller. He's very much a hit or miss. One thing I will say for sure is that like I said before, this is a movie that might be not for everyone. And another thing I will say is that if you went to many movies like me, you're gonna notice that the script of this movie is not exactly 100% original, let's say. I mean, this is a movie that has been done many times. I mean, when you think about it, you describe this movie as we have female protagonists with a bunch of people, and they're going through a claustrophobic environment while being chased by a horrific creature that's gonna kill them. Sounds familiar? Yeah. It sounds like Aliens. And Kristen Stewart is none other than our Ripley. And in a way, the way that it's filmed, the way that is shot, the way that you see most of the characters in their underwear, except when they put on their in this case, their underwater suits. You say that, yes, this is basically Aliens. Also in my mind, also came out in my head that this kind of sounds like Metroid. Also, yeah, Metroid was also based on Aliens in a way. But you know what? I'm not mad. I prefer a cliche done well instead of a cliche done badly. This one again has its strengths and its weaknesses that if you kind of forgive it, it will just be kind of like a 93 or 2 hour waste of time. Although that makes me wish that I hope this movie could inspire others to bring out a better movie that shows the underwater horrors, and basically taking advantage to make a better way to make underwater voyages really scary and really creepy. Now that I think of it, the movie also kind of has this feeling, kind of like The Descent. A movie that I was legitimately scared. And I wish they could have done that. Of course, that in The Descent it gives you the fear of going, on caves. I still want to see a movie that brings out a giant scare of being underwater. I mean, they've done it in space too, so why not underwater? Which is one of my biggest fears of this world. I can't stress enough how much I am scared of thinking what's underwater. Ugh. Ugh. I don't have so much to say about this movie. It's just pretty basic, run-of-the-mill, well, horror thriller action. But so I'll say, check it out. You're gonna entertain. You're gonna have your hit and misses with T.J. Miller. Is not me. I thought he was funny in some moments and some doesn't. And I'm not exactly a hater of T.J. Miller. But I'll say this, that if you're scared of going underwater, don't forget your bunny.